Hey, welcome back, or welcome if you're new. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing 5 amazing patriotic themed DIYs for your home using Dollar Tree's wooden trays. And the best part is that each of these DIYs costs no more than $5 to make. For the first DIY, I'll be using 3 of these wooden trays with a star cutout handle from Dollar Tree. I'm going to paint these, so I remove the barcode sticker on the back. I'm actually not going to be painting the bottoms, but I will be applying glue on them. I'll be painting the trays red, white, and blue, and I'll be using these Waverly chalk paints, Crimson and Ocean, and Folk Arts White. I start with a crimson paint. I take my paintbrush and I brush the paint all over one of the trays. I'll only be applying 1 coat since I am planning on sanding it down a bit to distress. I do make sure not to apply the paint on the base because I'm going to be applying glue on that area. Next up is the blue or ocean, and just like the previous tray, I apply the paint all over, avoiding the bottom of the tray. Now a small detail brush will also help get into those hard to reach areas like the corners or inside the star cutout. And finally, I apply the white paint on the last tray. Now for this one, I only paint around the outer sides of the tray. The other areas like the base and the tray surface will be covered, so I decided to just save some paint and skip those areas that aren't going to be seen. After the trays have completely dried, I grab a coarse grit sanding sheet and begin sanding all over the painted surfaces. I want to create a worn and distressed appearance, so I just keep sanding until I like the way it looks. If you prefer a cleaner and more polished look, you can definitely leave the trays as they are. The vibrant colors on their own are absolutely stunning without any distressing, so it's totally up to you and your personal style preference. The white tray is going to be placed in the center, so I decided to cut out some popsicle sticks and dry brush some white paint over them and then glue them over the star cutout. So that way you don't just see a hollow middle. I glue them in place and then I apply some wood glue all over the bottom of the white tray. I'm going to stack the trays on top of each other, and the best part is that you can flip them over so that it's a 2-sided design. And then I place a blue tray on top of that, gluing the bottoms together and making sure the sides are flush. Then I turn it over and apply glue all over the top of the white tray, and then I place the red tray on top of that. You want to place some weight on top until it's completely dry, and then seal it with your preferred sealer like clear wax or polyacrylic. And this DIY is done. For the next DIY, I'm going to be using a couple of these wooden crates from Dollar Tree and 2 of these house-shaped wood frame chalkboards from Dollar Tree as well. I'm going to be gluing the crates together, so I apply some wood glue over the longer sides of the crate, and then I bring the 2 crates together side by side. I clamp it to hold it in place while it's drying, and then I move on to the house frame. I'll be painting the chalkboards front and back, but I'm going to keep the wood frame unpainted because I love the natural wood element of that. So I get some painter's tape and I carefully cover up the frame. So I start with the back side of the house. I'm using Waverly chalk paint in the shade Ocean. This is such a beautiful shade of blue, and it will dry much darker than it looks right now. I want the paint to be completely opaque, so I do a couple of layers. Then I paint the chalkboard sides, same as the back. I apply a couple layers so that it's completely covered. Next, I paint the crates. Now on the long side of each crate, I only paint the side edge a bit. That side really isn't going to be seen, so I leave most of that side unpainted. After that, I remove the painter's tape around the frame. Wow, the combination of the natural wood and the dark blue paint is absolutely beautiful. I wanted to add a simple decorative detail to the house, so I get a bamboo stick and I measure the width of the houses, and I'm going to cut 6 to that length. You can also use popsicle sticks as well. And then I just glue them down towards the bottom of the house, spacing them out evenly. It's such a simple detail, but so charming. To secure the crate to the wood frame, I apply a line of glue along the bottom section of the frame, going up to the height of the crate. Then I carefully align and glue the crate onto the frame, making sure it's centered and securely attached. I'm going to be using this 3/8 of an inch dowel for the handle. I got this at Walmart and it came in a pack of 10. I mark and measure the distance between the two houses on each side of the crates. I also double up the depth of the frame so that the dowel fits snugly between the houses. Next, I apply glue on the bottom frame area of the unglued house, as well as on the ends of the dowels and the inner peak of the frame. So I glue everything together, starting with the dowel, holding it in place, and then I bring the outer frame towards the crate and dowel. I tried using these Dollar Tree clothespins to clamp the dowels so that I could just readjust the frame, but it didn't stay in place, so I just ended up having to hold it in place for a few minutes. But you know what's really awesome about this adorable little house-shaped toolbox? The handle actually functions like a real handle. Before committing to gluing everything down, I wanted to see how it would look if I added a wooden star in the center, or maybe even 3 stars for an extra patriotic touch, and it did look pretty nice. However, in the end, I decided to go for a simpler and cleaner look, that way I could use it for different occasions. I absolutely love how this charming wood house turned out. For the next DIY, I'm going to be using 3 of these Dollar Tree wooden trays. I'm going to paint them with some acrylic paint that I have, Apple Barrel's Deep Navy and Apple Red, and Craft Smart's White. I'm going to be painting the trays all over with these paints. I start with the blue and I thin it out with some water. I don't want it to go on too thick. I kind of want it to go on like a stain, so I apply the color and then I wipe it down. This paint was so pigmented, I kind of regretted not wearing gloves, especially since I was painting the whole tray. Next, with some gloves, I painted the next tray red. This video is part of the monthly 5 Under 5 DIY challenge, with the theme for this month being red, white, and blue. Hosted by Missy from Crafted Cove DIY and Emily from Farm Charm Chic, and the guest host is Marla from The Chic Show. I'll have the playlist linked below as well as their channels, so make sure to check that out and see what all these amazing and talented crafters made. The colors came out a bit darker than I liked, and I probably should have thinned it out a bit more, so I went ahead and sanded the trays down a bit. I really wanted them to look a bit rustic and worn. Inside the trays, I'm going to place the letters USA, so I have my Cricut cut out those letters about 4 inches in height. Now if you don't have a Cricut, no worries, you can easily use some letter decals or stencils, and those work wonderfully as well. So I applied the letters on the trays, and we are done with this super quick and easy DIY. For the next DIY, I'll be using 2 of the wooden trays, and I'm going to be using the bottoms or backs of these for this project. I'm going to paint one of them in the shade Ocean from Waverly. It's good to mix these chalk paints up before applying, especially the darker shades. Otherwise, you kind of get different shades if it's not properly mixed. So I apply the paint all over the outer sides as well as the bottom or the back of the tray. Now I'm not going to paint the inside surface of the tray. You certainly can if you wish. It's really not going to be seen, so I thought I would just save some paint and leave that part as is. For the other tray, I'm going to paint it white. I'm using Folk Arts chalk paint, and just like the previous tray, I paint the bottom and outer sides, leaving the inside as is. A while back, Essential Stencils sent me a few stencil packs to try out, and one of them happened to be an American theme pack, so I thought it would be the perfect opportunity to give them a go and see how they turned out. Just to clarify, this video isn't sponsored by them, but I genuinely wanted to try out their stencils and share my experience with you. For our project, I'm going to use the Star Stencil and the July 4th one since I wanted one that would go vertically. Of course, feel free to use any stencil or decal that matches your style. The great thing about these trays is that they are perfect for creating stunning tabletop decor signs. Okay, so let's get started with the stenciling process. I place a stencil on top of the tray, making sure it's centered, and to prevent any accidental moving, I secure it in place with some painter's tape. I dip the brush into the paint, and I'm using white chalk paint, and then I gently dab off the excess onto a paper towel. With the brush loaded with paint, I begin brushing over the stencil using circular motions. Now I'm being extra cautious around the edges of the stars because the tray is smaller than the stencil and I don't want any paint to accidentally end up on the sides of the tray. So I just take my time being extra careful along those areas. Wow, it's looking amazing so far. So I connect the stars and then I continue applying the color. Again, being extra careful on the edges where there's no wood underneath. Now honestly, I probably should have just taped those sides off. I didn't think about it until now, so next time for sure. Wow, I couldn't be happier with how this one turned out. For the next one, I place the stencil right in the center and then I place some painter's tape on the top and bottom to hold it in place. I'm using chalk paint from Waverly in the shade Crimson. So I dip the brush onto the paint and I make sure to dab out the excess and then I brush that over the stencil in circular motions. And wow, this one came out just as stunning. I really love how both of these turned out. This one's a bit different from the previous DIYs, so instead of using wooden trays, I'm going to be using this beautiful beaded wreath ring from Dollar Tree. To start, I picked up 2 red, white, and blue flower bouquets from Walmart, both under $1 each. So I begin by separating the flowers from the bouquet and gathering them together to arrange them just the way I want. I also bend the stem slightly to follow the curve of the wreath. I wanted to add some extra greenery, so I place a few behind the flowers. I found an adorable patriotic bow at Dollar Tree, but before attaching it to the wreath, I need to make sure there's enough space between the flowers because this bow is huge. To secure the bouquets onto the wreath, I use more floral wire, wedging it in between the beads of the wreath ring. I also secured the flowers from the back as well to keep the flowers from moving. I pull out a few of the leaves from this little greenery bouquet from Dollar Tree, and I place them around the bow to see how they look before gluing them down. I wanted to put a wooden sign over the wreath, and I already had one ready to go from a previous project. I made this one using some paint sticks stained with Waverly antique wax, and the phrase was from a Dollar Tree decor which I pulled out, but you can certainly customize the wording to whatever you like. So I glue that down and I attach some ribbon on top, and this DIY is done. Hey, thank you so much for watching and joining me on this patriotic DIY journey. I really hope these ideas sparked some inspiration for you to try out at home. If you enjoyed the video, will you please give it a thumbs up? And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe so that you don't miss any of my future DIY projects. Until next time, take care. Bye.